Hi everyone, welcome back to another class. My name is Damilola. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, it's been a long time I did a sit down video but today's video is very important and I feel like it is important I sit down to explain it to you. So we're going to be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the two main fabric inks that we use commonly, okay, which are Plastisol ink and water-based ink. It is important you know this because it will help you greatly in order to choose rightly what you want, the type of ink that you want for a particular project. So let's just dive into it without wasting any time. But before I go further, if this is your first time of coming across my channel, I am Damilola, as I've said before. And on this channel, I create content that I believe you can make money from. I teach skills that you can monetize. I talk about money, how to make money, even from your corner. Okay, so little things you can put together that will fetch you, extra income. So that's what I talk about on this channel. So if that interests you, subscribe to the channel and also like and comment in the comment section below. So let's just dive into the video of today. So we're going to start with Plastisol ink. Okay, so Plastisol ink, I would say, is a user-friendly ink. Yes, for some reason it's one of, in fact I would say, is my best ink because it has some great advantages, although it also has its own disadvantages. So we are going to be looking at the advantages of Plastisol ink before we go further into the disadvantages. Okay, so the first advantage of Plastisol ink is the fact that it is user friendly. Like, it is very easy for beginners to use. Plastisol ink is very easy for beginners to use, and these are the reasons why it's very easy. Number one, it doesn't dry easily. Plastisol ink does not dry easily, and the reason is it has little or no solvent. Okay, so it is the solvents that make ink dries, right? So because Plastisol has little or no solvent and it is thermoplastic, that is what is made up of, so it does not dry easily. Okay, so when you are using it, you are not scared of, oh, it's going to dry, oh, it's going to, I need to be fast. You can be as slow as anything, it will still not dry on your screen. Okay, so that is one of the first advantage of Plastisol ink. It will not dry. When you are working, especially when you are printing mass production, with one screen continuously, hours of doing that. If it's a ink that dries, it will just dry quickly. But this Plastisol ink can stay on the screen as long as you're still printing. You get it? So it is very easy to use for beginners. Okay. Number two reason is the fact that it does not dry on the screen, and like, it does not clog the screen. Okay, so let me show you the example of what I mean. I want you to take a look at this screen. Okay, so this screen, I've been using this screen over and over again because it's a continuous job. Okay, so there's something we call continuous job. Like a school badge is a continuous job, like a factory t-shirt is a continuous job. Maybe it's a job that they will always come, they will always have new members, they will always have people that will come, and you still need that logo for them. It's just like your company logo or something like that. Is a continuous job. Okay, so if you are working with a continuous job, it is very easy to use a Plastisol ink for it. Okay, so this one, all this screen, I've used it before and I've cleaned it. You can see it's still as clean as if I just exposed it. Okay, so it is easy to use, to manipulate. Look at this one. This ink, I've used it now more than one ink is still on it. I'm not scared of it. Anytime I want to use it, I will just clean it up with retarder and I can still use my screen. And some other inks, I may not be able to do this, but Plastisol ink, because it's still wet, look at it, it's still wet, and I've used this for more than a week now. It's still wet on the screen. Okay, so that is one of the advantage of this ink. You can see the back, you can see it's still wet. Okay, so I can always use my screen, it will not clog together, it's not going to spoil my screen. And it is, in fact, that is one of the reasons I just love it so much. Number 3 reason, it is environmental friendly. Okay, it is, you can print your job indoor. It has little, or it doesn't really, it's not too hazardous, you get it. So that's why I said it is user friendly. You can be in your living room and do your printing. It is not hazardous, and it does not have any smell. You rarely even perceive it until maybe when you put it very close to your nose to perceive it. That is when you really perceive the odor. You can't be printing and somebody will be perceiving the odor outside. Okay, so it is user friendly, it is not hazardous. You know, this is a great advantage, you get it, it's a great advantage. Another reason I so much love Plastisol ink is the fact that it stays visible on the material you printed it on. Okay, so the print stay visible, like you will see it on the layer. It's just as if you are using vinyl. If you use vinyl, you are going to see it very clearly. Okay, in fact, if you eat Plastisol ink very well, if you cure it properly, some people may think it's actually vinyl that you use. Okay, so for instance, let me show you what I mean by it stays visible on the print. Look at this one. Okay, it stays on the t-shirt. It stays on the t-shirt. You can see that it's very visible and it's very bold. Okay, it's not that you're still looking for how to get it or something like that. It stays very visible on the clothes, on the t-shirt. Okay, it does not sink inside. Look at it. It really does not sink inside, unless maybe when you apply, maybe you do like 2 layers or so, that you may be able to see it, or when you are curing it, that's when it can come. But look at it, it's not going to show on the other side. It will stay on the surface of the print and it stays very visible. Another advantage of Plastisol ink is that you can use it to print on a wet cloth. Okay, you can use it to print on a wet cloth and it's going to still print properly. Like in case of mass production or something like that, and you have some wet clothes and you still want to print, you can use Plastisol ink and it's still going to stay on the fabric as visible as possible. It's just that you need to cure it properly. So those are the advantages of Plastisol ink. I love Plastisol ink so much. Why am I being biased? Let me continue. Okay, so let's talk about the disadvantages. It also has its own disadvantages. There's nothing that has advantage that does not have disadvantage. As good as Plastisol ink is, it also has its own disadvantages. And number 1 disadvantage of Plastisol ink is still the fact that it cannot dry on its own, right? Yes, I know it's actually a good advantage, and I spoke a lot about the advantage of Plastisol ink not drying on its own, but it can also be a disadvantage in some cases. For instance, maybe you are in an area where you don't have access to light, or there is no how you can cure your job and you still need to use Plastisol ink, or you can't use it because it's not going to dry on its own. You just have to choose another ink. Unless maybe when you had vinyl ink can make Plastisol ink dry on its own, but still it's still going to take some time for it to dry. So that is one of the disadvantages, because you need to cure it properly for it to dry. Yes. Number 2 reason I don't like Plastisol ink, and this is one of the reason I would choose another ink over Plastisol ink, okay, even though it's my go-to ink, is the fact that it can remit. Okay, it can remit. This ink can remit if you apply this ink can remit if you apply too much heat on it. Okay, let me just tell you what I mean by that. So after printing on your t-shirt or something like that, and you now say you want to iron it, okay, if you apply too much heat on top of the print, it can remit. Okay, so let me show you this one. so that you understand what I mean better. Okay, so this t-shirt now that I've printed, so is cured and is staying very well on it. If I wash it, it's not going to wash, it's going to stay on it. Okay, but if I apply it on it, let's say I just put iron on it and I just start, iron, some aggressive ironing, and I start, causing friction on this print, it's going to start melting. The print will start melting again. That is one of the reasons I don't really like it. Okay, there are some people that when you print clothes for them, they are just addicted to ironing. Even t-shirt, they will iron and iron over and over again. So when you continue to iron it over and over again with lot of it can just melt the ink. So that is one of the reasons I don't like Plastisol ink. Yes. And the last one I'm going to be talking about is it is expensive. Yes, Plastisol ink is more expensive than water-based ink. Okay, if you buy let's say 1,000 naira water-based ink, for you to get the same quantity you need to get like 2,500 or 3,000 naira Plastisol ink. We are looking for the same quantity, so it is more expensive. It's just as if it's 3 times expensive more than water-based ink. So it is expensive but it's good. That's what they use for all these custom t-shirt for boutiques and all. So now that we've talked about what Plastisol ink, let's go to water-based ink. Okay, so water-based ink also has its own plenty advantages and it also has its own disadvantages. So there are some specific things that it is just water-based ink that you can use them for. Okay, and I think that is why this water-based ink is actually created. It's created for some specific prints. Okay, so what is water-based ink? Generally, it's just like water-based ink is the solvent of water-based ink is water. Okay, so and some other chemicals. Okay, so but the main solvent is water, and that is the reason it can dry on its own even without curing. Okay, so one advantage of water-based ink is the fact that it can sink into the clothes. It can sink into the clothes. I decided to put on this dress because I just want to show you that this is water-based ink print. Yeah, this is water-based ink print. Okay, so when you see all this pattern of clothes like this, you can see the way it is. It's actually water-based ink, and the reason I know, some of you may be thinking that maybe it's factory print. No, it's not factory print. It is water-based ink. There's some people that do this mass print and they use water-based to do it. Okay, so this is actually water-based ink that they use. So there's tendency for it to sink inside of the fabric. That's one advantage of water-based ink. Another advantage of water-based ink is the fact that it does not stay visible on the fabric. Okay, this can be an advantage in Plastisol ink, but this is also advantage when it comes to water-based ink too. There are some things that you don't just want to feel it. Okay, look at this fabric now. Imagine if this fabric, I can feel all the print on it. How is it going to be like imagine me holding the fabric like this and everything is just doing karakara. I'm feeling the ink. Okay, so it's not sinking into the clothes. Okay, so that is one advantage of water-based ink that I so much love. It will stay on the clothes. It will sink inside the clothes. It's not going to stay or on the surface of the fabric. Another advantage of water-based ink is you can use it to print on large format clothes like banners. Imagine you using Plastisol ink to print on banners. How do you want to dry it? Like, there's some banners that are very, very big. How do you want to dry it? It's going to take time. It's going to consume a lot of time before you can do that. So that is when they use water-based ink. Okay, so because it's just going to dry on its own. Basically, when you use it to print on very large production of clothes, you just leave it like that, and before you know it, it's dried already without you even curing it. So those are the advantages of water-based ink that I can remember at the moment. So if you also know any advantages of it, let us know in the comment section below. So let's go to the disadvantages of water-based ink. Okay, so number one disadvantage of water-based ink is the fact that it can cluster on the screen. Like, this is something that gives me headache so much when I'm using water-based ink, and that is why when you are using water-based ink, you have to wash your screen immediately, because it can render your screen useless. Like this Plastisol ink now, I can just decide that, oh, after printing I'm tired, let me just put it somewhere and later I'm going to wash the screen out or something like that. But water-based ink, I cannot try it like that. You know, if I leave the ink on the screen, it's just going to clog, yes, the ink, and it's just going to, you know, make render the screen useless. Okay, so I have to make sure I wash the ink out from the screen immediately. Another reason is it is not user friendly at all. The reason is it dries very, very fast, and in case of large production, there's usually like stress, and that is why when you are using water-based ink, in case of large production, is advisable for you to have some extra screen in case that one dry off. Okay, so you see that it dries, the ink just dry very fast on it, and that is why you have to know how to flood your screen properly when you are using water-based ink, because it dries. Although it's one of the common ink that people use, and that is one of the advantage, because it is not expensive. Okay, it is not as expensive as Plastisol ink, but it dries so fast that if you are not a professional when it comes to using all these inks, you will just get frustrated at some point when your ink start drying and your screen start, you know, when your screen starts clogging together, that your print is not showing again. To reach some point that your print is not going to show again if you don't know how to use this ink properly. Another disadvantage of water-based ink is the fact that because it is water, it can peel the emulsion. If the emulsion is not properly coated, okay, when you are coating your merch, it can peel it off, and with continuous printing to just start peeling off the emulsion, and at the end of the day it's just going to render your work useless. Let me show you what I mean by it's going to peel the emulsion. Okay, so this is the emulsion. It is considered that this part, it is not exposed, so even when ink touches this part, it's not going to print on the fabric. Okay, so but using water-based ink continuously and all, you know, there's tendency for it to peel this emulsion out, and it becomes something like this for ink to penetrate. Okay, because it is water. Okay, the main solvent of water-based ink is water, so it can peel this off and causes ink to leak out. You know, when that happens, then that makes your work, you know, useless. So those are the disadvantages of water-based ink. I know this video is a little bit lengthy, but it is important for me to bring to you these advantages and disadvantages for you to choose rightly when you are choosing your ink. Don't say that water-based ink has a lot of disadvantages, I'm not going to use them. There are some specific print that you cannot just but use water-based ink. For instance, if you are printing home bag, yes, like all this taffeta bag, you can't use Plastisol ink. You can't use Plastisol ink on taffeta. How do you want to do it? You need water-based ink that will dry on it too. Do you want to use Plastisol and now put iron on it? It's going to burn it. Okay, so you need water-based ink. If we are printing on badge, you know, badge fabric is usually not thick and it cannot withstand heat so long, so you cannot use Plastisol ink, because if you use Plastisol ink on such, there's no how it's going to cure, because badge fabric cannot withstand a lot of heat, so you need water-based ink that will dry on its own. So there are lots of instances where you can use water-based ink, and it's very, very important. You can also use it for your t-shirt. You can use it, there's some t-shirt that cannot withstand too much heat, that if you apply too much heat on them, it's just going to burn. So in such cases, water-based ink is a go thing for you. But if you are branding something, it's something like a branded t-shirt or something, I would strongly advise that you use Plastisol ink. Okay, so maybe like a boutique print or something like that, please use Plastisol ink for such. But in some other cases that I've just mentioned now, you need water-based ink for that. And don't forget, after using your water-based ink, make sure you wash your screen immediately, unless if you want to incur extra charges. Yes, by buying another merch. Okay, we've come to the end of the class, but before I go, I want to advise that you join my screen printing class. Yes, if you really want to go far in this screen printing, know the behind the scene, know it in detail, be independent on your own, you need a tutor. And that is why I have brought down the price of the class to the minimum of 8,500. Now that it's still 8,500, I want you to grab this opportunity to learn. This is a class that can go as high as 50,000 naira. Yes, but I have brought it down to just 8,500. Do well, plan towards it to join the class so that you're going to know all these things. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and don't forget to subscribe. Also drop your comments in the comment section below, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.